Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. Over this past year, the Church in the United States have reported about 9% thus far fewer priestly ordinations than we've had in the past 10 years. And evening out that statistic, according to the best numbers, but 342 men were ordained diocesan priests for U.S. dioceses this year. It's a slight uptick from years prior, but it also signifies a decline from a decade prior. 2016, 376 men were ordained U.S. diocesan priests, 9% more than this year. Now, as I've cautioned all of us pertaining to the sheer surge of in recent history, especially in the past 5 years, of record numbers in recent history of Catholic converts, sure, celebrate every conversion as they come, but please celebrate cautiously, because what the Church is trying to remind us of is that she is a home for those who are hungry and those who are seeking and searching, but we cannot be triumphalistic because we're not trying to play a numbers game. And if we want to look at the numbers, then right now the statistics are demonstrating that for every one person who enters into the Church, about 8 people wind up leaving. And some people have rightly told me, well, it's not a numbers game. We should be celebrating the conversions. I agree. But I was one of those 8. I mean, I was worse. I was well outside of the life of the Church. And no one did the work of trying to evangelize my soul. And so I care about the 8 that were left behind, that are leaving every single year. We're failing them in one way, shape, or form. And so when you even out those statistics and you take a look at the fact that we're having lesser and lesser priests ordained every year, there's a number of factors at play. The trend here of smaller U.S. ordination classes than in prior decades might also include the factor of the 2018 abuse scandal. Joining me to talk about this and to share his insights is Jack Figge. He's a young Catholic journalist, MBA and BA in Political Science and Theology from Benedictine University. Jack, great to speak with you again. How are you?
It's great to be with you, Marcus. I'm doing well today. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, always a joy to reconnect with you. You do good journalistic work. So give us an overview of the points you're trying to make here, that if we're looking at a one-decade statistical comparison, we are lower than we were before, but we're seeing some uptick in terms of last year and the year before that. So what's the trend looking like?
Yeah, it's super interesting right now. So if you compare the ordination class of 2016 to the ordination class of 2026, there's a 9% difference right there. There's about 342 men ordained this year, 376 men ordained in 2016. And so I think it's interesting to note just kind of the different regions that are growing, most notably the southeast region down in Florida, which can partially be attributed to the demographic shift. You have a lot of people moving down to Florida. Texas saw a lot of ordinations because a lot of people moving down to Texas. The places that are really struggling are the coasts, right? You have your Archdiocese of New York with ordaining 2 men, Archdiocese of Los Angeles ordaining 3 men. These major metropolitans are ordaining very few men. But then there are some anomalies, like the Archdiocese of Baltimore, the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. So I really wanted to talk to the bishops and leaders there to understand why those dioceses are thriving, and it's all about building a culture of vocations.
So what does that mean? What does it mean to say that the diocese has worked at building a culture of vocations?
Yeah, so building a culture of vocations basically means it's this very intentional effort by the bishop, by the vocation director, and by the priest to get not just the vocation director and the bishop involved in talking about the vocations, but to make this something that everybody is talking about, that all the parish priests are talking about, that all the laity are talking about how do we encourage young men to discern this priesthood, to discern seminary life. And a lot of it just begins at the parish and family level of encouraging young men to go deeper in their spiritual life, and young women also to discern religious life, but to go deeper in their spiritual life, to introduce people to more young priests, to have priests intentionally reach out to young men and say, hey, let's grab a meal, let me tell you a little bit about my life. A priest showing young men what the life of a priest looks like, and to really just have this climate where young men are exposed to the life of a priest and to see that this is an attractive reality.
What are some of the factors that you rightly highlight in your piece too that have become hindrances or at least obstacles to the statistical number of ordinations, but also the consideration of embracing religious and priestly vocations?
Yeah, so I think there's two factors. First is just a purely demographic, right? There are less young men today than there were back in the 1960s. Adults are having less babies. Families are significantly smaller, so families often have only 2 to 3 children, and those parents are often reluctant to encourage their kids to discern a vocation when they only have 2 or 3 kids, and so they still want to have grandchildren. They want people to be able to care for them, and they don't see. Bishop Mike Sisk of the Diocese of San Angelo was telling me, parents just don't see the priesthood as a viable option for their children. And so that the changing demographics of family life is a huge contributing factor, and one that should be explored much more immensely. But then the other big component is just the cultural challenges that young people endure today, right? You have the rise of secularism, the rise of materialism, just the temptation of wealth in today's day and age. And then, of course, you have pornography and just a proliferation of all these ideologies that young men are exposed to online. I was talking to multiple vocations directors that are saying, yeah, we have young guys that are applying and interested, but a lot of them, there's a major quality issue. They have some part of their life story that at the moment makes them unfit to begin seminary formation. So just the entire culture is making it even more difficult for not just the young men, but also for their formators.
I'm really glad you brought that up. And without divulging too much, could you share what it means when dioceses have young men applying, but even amongst that pool, there's a quote-unquote quality issue? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the quality issue is, it's more about you have young men who, for some reason, they have issues of maybe sexual maturity. They come from a very broken home. They have maybe some type of just psychological issue, anxiety is on the rise for young men. And you have all these different problems that make them unfit for seminary life, at least for the moment. Seminary life is a very taxing lifestyle, and it's very intense and needs a lot of deep personal reflection and requires a lot of maturity. And you're just seeing a lot of young men who aren't as mature today as they were years ago, just from the delayed development that's been encouraged by kind of the secular materialistic society that we live in today.
So all of this is good for parents and even young people to know right now, that these are areas that one needs to grow in and demonstrate spiritual, practical, psychological, emotional maturity before being interested or at least expressing interest in religious life and priestly vocation. What are some other considerations as we round off that parents can keep in mind to help bolster this true and ardent need for more priests and more religious?
Yeah, I think the key thing that parents and the lady needs to remember is that this is not a problem for the vocation director. This is not a problem for the parish priest. This is an everybody problem. And people have, the lady has a very important role to play, whether that be encouraging young men to discern the priesthood or encouraging just praying for vocations. Archbishop Lori told me that when he met with Pope Benedict and asked him what to
So we're going to have to stop there, Jack. I'm so sorry. The music is hitting. I've been talking with Jack Figge. He is a young Catholic journalist, and we've been talking about steps in increasing vocations. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.